Good morning. Good morning and welcome. Today, Mike Shoemate's going to lead a four-part seminar on how to have a happy marriage. So Mike approached the elders about doing this seminar, and we'll kind of worked with them to try to get it in. And we're going to do it in one day in 4 different sessions. So we're going to kick this off with 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, Mike's going to preach. He's going to do the sermon during worship. Just be a regular worship, but he'll have the sermon. And then special sessions at 2 and at 4. If you don't know Mike, and what I like to say, he's somebody that doesn't need introduction, but I know there's people that have come around new, and there's people that are visitors. Mike was our preacher here for 18 years, 20 years, 18 years. Mike was our preacher here. Mike came from Pittsburgh, is where his hometown is, and he likes to let you know that he's from Pittsburgh. So, there you go. There's some people. I know Mike's got a degree from Lipscomb. Mike has a counseling degree from Liberty, right? A master's degree in counseling from Liberty. And he's got a PhD in counseling, too. And counseling, right? Family counseling? Christian counseling. He's got a PhD in Christian counseling. Mike's been doing counseling as well as when he was preaching. That was what he did full time. He still does a lot of counseling. He does a lot of people for individuals, groups, couples, families. So we're lucky to have Mike and talk about something that he is an expert in. We believe it's good for our church, it's good for the families, it's good for even I know we've already talked to a widow this morning. It's like, what's in it for me? Well, maybe you can reflect on what was good in your marriage and remember that and help out your own kids or whoever too. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Good morning. It is good to see everybody. Let me tell you how this will work. It's a marriage seminar. And some people say, well, I'm not married. It doesn't matter. This is how you get together with other people. It's a relationship seminar. There's some things that you have to do if you're going to have a lot of friends. And one of the things I counsel about is people who come in and say, I've tried, but I don't have any friends. If you do it right, you can have lots of friends. It's a matter of knowing how to do it, but not too many people teach that. So if you stay for the 4 sessions, you will not only come out of here with a lot of knowledge, but you'll have a lot of knowledge that you can use in your daily life. I will take questions if we have time. I am a preacher. I've been a preacher since I graduated from Lipscomb. And I don't know how much you know about preachers, but we tend to be long-winded. So, if I take too much time, I can't take questions, but if you write them down on a card, I will see that you get a reply. Okay, let's get started. A man was walking on the beach, and he came and looked, and there's this thing in the sand. So he dug down, and he held it up, and he says, it looks like a genie's lamp. I wonder if I rub it. So he rubbed it, and sure enough, a genie pops out. She said, you're not the owner of the lamp, so I can only give you one wish. So make it a good wish. He said, I'm afraid of water, and airplanes scare me to death because they crash. But I've always wanted to see England. Could you put a highway from Florida over to England so I can drive over and see everything in England? And Jeannie looked at him and thought and said, that would be really, really hard even for a genie. Don't you have something else you would like? The man thought for a while. He said, I'd like to know how men and women can get along and how they could be happily a couple. And the genie stepped back and looked at him. He said, "That highway, do you want a 4-lane or a 2-lane?" A lot of times in our lives, we are thrown into and said, get along. And we don't give a lot of instructions how to do it. And that's what we want to sort of defeat. One of the reasons that we have been hard to get along, especially in relationships man and woman, is what we've been taught. This doesn't work for me. Wrong button. We have been taught this, that you find somebody and you are going to live happily ever after. It's just going to happen. Now, some of you look old enough that you might be where I am, so this isn't a bad illustration. Rock Hudson and Doris Day movies. They all had this same pattern. Rock Hudson adores Doris Day, but she absolutely hates him. So he's trying hard to get her to notice him and to be with him, and he sends roses, and he tries to get her to go out to dinner, and they try over and over and back and forth. And at the end, Doris Day loves Rock Hudson. And they go off, and it's happily ever after. We're taught in our society, if you find the right person, you're going to be happy. You need to find your soulmate. So if you aren't happy, you just found the wrong person. It's a pure accident. Even the Beatles teach this. This is from 1963, so if you've heard the song, you are almost as old as I am. Well, she was just 17, if you know what I mean. And the way she looked was way beyond compare. So how could I dance with another when I saw her standing there? She looked at me, and I could see that before too long, I'd fall in love with her. Oh, when I saw her standing there, well, my heart went boom, and I crossed that room, and I held her hand, and we danced through the night, and we held each other tight, and before too long, I was in love with her. I'll never dance with another when I saw her standing there. Do you see the message? I saw this woman way over yonder, and it went, wow. And I knew that was the woman for me. In 18 years of preaching, I've had people come in and say, would you marry us? And I have a test that I give. And the first test is, how long have you known each other? I have had multiple, over 12, I stopped counting at 12, people who had said a month or less. In a month or less, they look at themselves and say, this is the person, and then they marry them. And in 6 months, I've got more business because now they're back, and it's not the person that was going to be wonderful. Maybe that's why we have the statistics we have. If I asked you which country in the world has the highest divorce rate, you would say the United States of America is the right answer. We are by far the most divorced country in the world. All these people who get married and it's going to be happily ever after, 53% of them, it won't be happily ever after. And that doesn't include those who try out marriage without being married and just living together. Some estimates go as high as 70% of the people who think they found Mr. or Mrs. Right haven't. Now add to that fact that in 66% of all marriages, one or both of the people commit adultery. 66%. That's tough stuff. And you say, well, what causes that? And what causes happily ever after to turn into total blah? Well, there's a name for it. Limerence. Limerence came about in 1970 by a lady named Dorothy Tenoff. And then she wrote her book in 1979. And what limerence basically is, this is her definition, an involuntary interpersonal state that involves acute longing for an emotional reciprocation, obsessive compulsive thoughts, feelings and behaviors, and emotional dependence on another person. Doesn't that sound nice? What it is in everyday terms is, you think you found the perfect woman or the perfect man, and they have no faults. They're just perfect. They sort of walk above the floor, so they never get their shoes dirty. And they don't have anything that's going to irritate you. Limerence gets to the person that if I only had this person in my life, if I only had her, I would be happy. Let me give you one of those facts of why we are here. We are here because we are all sinners. We are here because we all do things that are wrong. We are not perfect. And we need forgiveness. Knowing that, you don't have the sorts of happiness forever because they're going to mess up. Now, those of you who have been here when I was here, you know I have the perfect daughter. She just is perfect. And all the people who have a child say, she's not perfect. I love her to pieces, and I would do anything she asked me to do that was legal. I don't think she'd ask me to do anything that's illegal. But she had her moments. So she's not one of these people who has perfection. But if you believe the other person is perfect, you are dependent on that other person accepting you. You will do whatever it takes to be with that other person. You are under their control. All they have to say is, I don't want to see you again. And you will do whatever it takes to be with the perfect person who has no faults. It's one of the things that happen with guys at work. Guys at work look across, or girls at work, and they see this person and she's cute. If only I could be with her or him, everything would be perfect in my life. And that's why married people end up having affairs. They think they can find the perfect person, and they know after they live with somebody that they're not perfect. Sue and I have been married for 53 years. And if you asked her, I will deny it, but you asked her, she'll be honest and say, no, he's not perfect. And she's right. Now, she's perfect. You all just take that to the bank. Very close. But when you're into limerence, you're so focused on the other person that you lose track of what you want in life. You want whatever they want in life. You're so focused on what will be that you forget the here and now. This is the one and only person. Nobody else will do. I have to be with that person. They are my soulmate. Our souls blend together, and that's how you get perfect. Everything that you hear reminds you of them. In counseling, these people are not fun. Because you can bring up anything, and they'll say, well, this person does that. Well, why are you in my office? Because the relationship's falling apart. Well, it's my fault, because it can't be their fault. It's got to be me. I'm not measuring up to the high standard. You see their good qualities, but refuse to see that this person's a human being with bad qualities also. Okay, what causes limerence? Well, first of all, limerence sets off a cocktail of drugs in your brain, chemicals. It's better than drugs. The big one is dopamine. Dopamine is a very powerful drug. It's one of the things that drug addicts have to overcome. It's that good feeling when you get enough dopamine in the brain. So if this is set off by limerence, guess what? I want that feeling all the time. The problem with it is that dopamine needs to keep the same high, and you can't. Let's talk about this to people on the everyday level. You buy a new truck, and you bring it to church. What are you going to do with it? You're going to pop that hood, and you're going to look under it, and you say, hey, look at that. What I would say would be, yeah, that's an engine, because I'm not a mechanic. It has a real engine in it. And it's shiny, and it looks good, and it's polished, and you all say, wow. In 3 to 7 years, you're going to be saying, I got to start looking for a new truck. This truck is getting old. It's got dents in it now, and it's not as shiny as it was before. And some of the things that were working good back then, they're not working good now. And I really like that feeling for something that's brand new and never been touched before. That's limerence. When it's with people, it's limerence on steroids. It is much more powerful. Well, what causes limerence to fade away? It's the same thing that destroys marriages. This is done by John Gottman. John Gottman, right now, is sort of the guru of marriage therapy. He's one of the big ones that everybody goes to and looks up and sees because he's a researcher. And as a researcher, he brings people in and tries to find out where they're at. I went to a seminar with John Gottman. He's a little fella. He's shorter than me, so he became my instant favorite researcher when you find somebody shorter than me. But he said, anybody that wants to come to the marriage lab can. And it's just like being at home. We have chairs, but we also wire you so we know your heart beating. We have periodic moments where we test your urine, so you have to be able to go to the bathroom and give us some of your urine about every 3 hours. We have electrodes that let us know what your skin is doing. And it's foreign and it's not home, but other than that, it's a great place to be. Besides the cameras that are everywhere but the bedroom. Now, what has he found out? What he's found out is important. There are 4 things that will end limerence. 4 things that will actually defeat you and cool off your relationship very quickly. The first one is complaining. Complaining is different than criticism. A complaint only addresses the action. For instance, when it comes to a more global thing, you start talking about the person. A complaint is, I felt terrible about that. A criticism is when the other person has failed. This is an example, so it's the easiest one I could come up with. You are told to go fill the car. Your wife says, we're a little low on gas. Please fill the car before you get home from work. And you come home and she says, did you fill the car? The correct response was, you didn't fill the car like I asked. Notice there's an absence of attack on the other person. You haven't brought them up. You haven't told them they're a failure. You haven't looked in their eyes and with that look of disgust. Criticism, there isn't any gas in the car? Why didn't you fill the tank like you promised? What's wrong, with you? Now it's not the fact that the car doesn't have gas. Now what's causing the problem is there's a fault with you. You're not the ideal person. You're messed up in a way. Getting a hold of that is important. Went too fast. You're not merely offering a critique or voicing a complaint. It's an attack on the character of the other person. When you're looking at the person and giving them a fault, like the one here, you are so selfish. Another one I hear a lot is, he's such a pig. Guys are known for not cleaning up after themselves. He's such a pig. I had a couple that for 8 months, they came for counseling. And their biggest issue was, both of them were stupid. They were stupid because of the way they put the forks in the dishwasher. She thought the fork ought to be up so the water would get to it and wash away all the food. He thought with the fork up, you could stick yourself and it was dangerous, so he put the fork down. And she thought that was just ignorant. You didn't know how to get things clean. He thought you didn't care about him at all. He was putting him in the dishwasher for her. Now, who was right? Both. And you want to talk about magic that counselors have? I looked at her and said, when you put them in, young lady, you put them up. And that's the way you'll do it. And you get to take them out at the end. And you, sir, you put them down. You get to take them out of the end and put them away. Which way you put a fork in a dishwasher doesn't matter. But boy, they can assassinate each other's character by it. That's criticism. Here's another complaint. You should check with me before inviting people over. I was hoping to spend some time with you. Criticism. Why do you always put your friends ahead of me? I'm last on the list. You are so inconsiderate. See the fault in the person? They're inconsiderate. They don't think about you. They probably, this couple that came in was married for 11 years. And because he invited people over, he was inconsiderate. So, how to keep from being critical? This is difficult. Use I statements. I think, I feel, I see. That takes the other person out of the problem entirely. Now this is the way I feel. This is what I see. And they have the right then to voice what they feel. But if you start with you, now you've got the other person involved. You never think of me. You never take in consideration which way I put the fork in the dishwasher. You never fill the tank with gas. You. That's the launch off to say there's something wrong with you. And what the truth is you are judging the person, and that's what God tells you not to do. But that's not the biggie. The biggie is contempt. According to Gottman, who's done this study he's been studying now for 50-some years, contempt is the fastest way to destroy your marriage. It is a step up from a criticism. What does it look like? Contempt in a relationship shows itself as sarcasm, eye-rolling. One of the definite signs of it is the person who looks up and their mouth goes up with them. They're sitting there saying, oh, I've got to put this again. It's contempt. Mocking, criticism, name-calling, mean stuff. Humor that is at the expense of the other person is contempt. And once it comes out, it is the hardest thing to repair. Because you have just told the other person, you're not worth working on this. It's dangerous in a relationship because it eats at the very things that make relationships go. Respect. A fondness for the other person. An admiration that, using Sue again, we have some agreements. that I will be totally honest with her, no matter what. And sometimes it's not good, in my estimation. We were in Pittsburgh. Doug said we came from Pittsburgh. We were in the South Hills Mall, which is a huge mall. And there was this lady in a green dress who had put her leg up on the bench, and the dress had come up to just covering the bare essentials. And we walked by, and Sue looked at me and said, "Did you see that girl?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And she said, "It's all right. She didn't notice you at all." But you got to have that honesty and openness to defeat contempt. You don't want to be pitted against each other, because when you get into contempt, you put down your partner, all of a sudden you're not in favor of staying married to them. This is a direct quote from John Gottman. "Contempt is like criticism on steroids." That's my words, his is in the bold. "It insinuates disgust for one's partner, eye-rolling, sarcasm, hateful comments are just a few of the manifestations of this toxic behavior, which signals a lack of respect and a sense of superiority. This is the single greatest predictor of divorce." If you have a mate that thinks they're superior to you, you're in trouble. Now, one of those statements that, and sometimes we are taught that this ought to be the way marriage works. It is not. One cannot be superior to the other. And we'll get into that in the second session and the third session. So you want to stay around because it's going to be good stuff. Here's how to offset contempt. Remind yourself of your partner's good qualities. You married them for a reason. There had to be good qualities there. There had to be something that you saw that made you think, this person's a good person. Second, tell your spouse about the qualities that you choose. And it's those qualities that you choose to be with them. Those of you who know my wife know the qualities. She is determined. She is a great organizer. She's all the things I'm not. But she doesn't remind me of that. Defensiveness. This is one-upmanship. I am better than you. Sometimes it's knowledge. I know more than you. Sometimes it's ability. I can do this better than you. I can do that much better than you. Usually it comes out with the person who always has to be right. And the thing about defensiveness, it's you want to be superior, you want to win. But in a relationship, there are two of you, and if you want to win, the other person has to lose. It doesn't matter who has the best argument if the other person feels like you don't care. It doesn't have to be a lot of nastiness if the other person is treating you like a child. This idea of wanting to win destroys that togetherness that you got married to have. We're doing good. I think we'll have time at the end. The way you defend yourself is you project blame and escalation rather. This is the one that is important to me. I used to do this. Stonewalling. Stonewalling is when somebody tries to correct you, you just check out. You feel inferior. You break eye contact. This is my statement, nobody else's. You look down, and every once in a while you look up at the other person to see if the ogre has left yet. If they haven't, you look back down. You don't keep eye contact too long. Let's say, harp a little louder. So it's up, down, up, down. Or sometimes you check out to the point where you distract yourself. You start doing something else. My favorite one was the lady who came in and says, he goes out and fixes the car 3 times a day, every day. Because when he came in, she'd let him have both barrels. So it would be better out with the car who's not yelling at him than coming in and getting both barrels. Interesting. This is a Gottman find. 80% of those who stonewall are guys. We might not like to fight, we just aren't going to get involved. So we stonewall and avoid. We check out to go see where the car is. Okay. I am going to figure this out by the end. Nope, I'm not. We're headed in the right direction. Here's how you can tell stonewalling. The person they act like you're not even in the room. You can be there, they can be talking, and you're not making eye contact, you're not noticing, you're not replying. It's like they aren't there. So you just sort of cut them out of your brain length, and if you can put your fingers in your ears and not be noticed, you would do that. Second, you turn away while the other person's speaking. The polite thing to do, and what you're taught in college whenever you want to do some counseling, is you look eye to eye. Because in the eyes you can tell a lot about the person. This person turns away from the person that they're checking out from. They don't want to look in the eye. They don't want to listen to them. They don't want to consider. So they get busy. You can ask them questions, but remember, you're not there. The person doing the talking is not there. So you don't have to answer a question that's just sort of floating in the air. If you interrupt or you both talk at the same time, you can cancel each other out. I have a friend who's thinking about getting married. So I sat down with him and I said, I want to see your communication pattern. And when she would start talking, he would start talking. And at the end of their two talking, I would look at one of them and say, what did they say? And they say, I have no idea. And the reason they have no idea is they were concentrating on what they were saying, trying to get the point across. And if you have two people trying to get their point across, they're not going to be listening to getting your point across. So there's even an exercise that I do with people who come in who are having problems. I set up 2 chairs, and I tell them who's going to be the talker and who's going to be the listener. And we get either the girl or the guy being the listener and the girl or the guy being the talker. And they have short chunks. If you're going to be talking to somebody, they cannot reply to a list of things. So you have a short chunk and you'd say, what did they say? They should be able to remember a short chunk, but some people have not tuned in their ears and they've been sitting there thinking of their reply. They haven't heard a thing. It's important that you get in and you try to understand. Even if you say, are you saying that? And if they say, no, that's not what I'm saying, don't argue, yes, it is. They're the expert on what they're saying and trying to get across. Okay. They become repetitive no matter what you say. And what they're trying to say is, we got to stop. And the best thing you can do is stop. Don't keep on after they're not ready to be involved in this discussion. The worst thing, though, that I've seen done is somebody who outright acted like his wife wasn't there. She would follow him around the house, and he would just act like she wasn't there. When she started, he started singing. And the idea was, if I sing loud enough, I won't have to hear her. They don't want to be responsible. They don't want to discuss any issues. Okay. This is one of the rules I do when I do seminars. If you have questions, I usually take them at the end of the presentation. I was shooting for 10 o'clock, and then I find out that 10 o'clock's not when you... So, if you write it down and give it to me, I will see that you get an answer to your question. Or run me down, and we'll find an empty room, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. Okay? Okay, you've been a great audience. This is fantastic. In the sermon, you'll want to be taking notes because there's some very important stuff that we need to discuss. So stay tuned. It's going to get better.